All right. Hello, people of YouTube land. Those that are part of the Cringe Crew Gaming Community Discord, those that follow Ted and I on Twitch, and all to the people that are listening to this on Spotify or whatever audio platform we decide to put this on, or whatever else we decide to put this on. This is the Cringe... Oh, wait, sorry. I am Traductus.
And I'm Ted. We're also making today a drinking game. Every time Stallman mentions the sequel to this movie, take a shot. You're going to die by the end of this podcast. I'm sorry in advance.
Maybe. I'm going to try not to, but it's kind of unavoidable. That being said, this is the Cringe Crew Gaming Movie Review Podcast, and we are obviously doing Tarantino. What we typically do is that we take a director's filmography and we review it. Last season we did Christopher Nolan and Stanley Kubrick. Now we're doing Tarantino, and then once we're done with Tarantino, we'll tell you who the next person is, if we haven't revealed it already.
I don't think we have.
And I'd like to keep it a little bit of surprise.
Yeah, secrets.
But speaking of surprises and stuff like that, this film is Kill Bill Volume 1, and let's just say there's a lot of questions that get answered in the sequel that we have in this movie.
That's one.
That was on purpose. So that way there's at least one on there. All right, so Kill Bill Volume 1 was released in 2003, October of 2003. Had a budget of $30 million and had a box office return of $180.9 million. Originally, Kill Bill Volume 1 and 2 were supposed to be one movie. However, as a suggestion from Harvey Weinstein, Tarantino split the movie into two films to avoid cutting scenes. Tarantino conceived Kill Bill as a homage to the 1973 film Lady Snowblood, grindhouse cinema in general, martial arts films, samurai films, blaxploitation, and spaghetti westerns. Oddly enough, I thought this was based off of a manga. It's not. This was actually conceived by Tarantino and Uma Thurman during Pulp Fiction, which is why the credits to the story are to Q and U with, Quentin and Uma. Tarantino spent a year and a half writing the script while he was living in New York City in 2000 to 2002, spending time with Thurman and her newborn daughter Maya. And with Thurman being now a mother, influenced the way Tarantino wrote the bride character. There was actually a couple rewrites. Originally, what was supposed to kind of happen was this was essentially going to be Inglourious Bastards, sort of like the character of Shoshana Dreyfus, which I think is the French lady in Inglourious Bastards who takes revenge on the Nazis. Originally, it was supposed to be that character would be an assassin with a list of Nazis she would cross off after she killed them.
Maybe I need to watch Inglourious Bastards again to feel out how that would play out, but the way this movie turns out does not feel at all like Inglourious Bastards. But it's interesting.
But it's interesting how he scrapped a whole part and then made it a different film.
While fascinating, I guess I just don't understand how you take the parts of this movie that were once written and this is a Nazi film. I can feel it. That sits weird with me. I don't like that.
I mean, it's supposed to kill Nazis, but whatever.
No, nobody makes a Nazi film glorifying them. Let's be honest. My point is still the same, that this feels very.
Or shall we say no person that has any moral fiber makes a Nazi film without glor. I mean,
Yeah, I just that sits weird with me. I don't know how you. Okay. Anyway, continue.
Thurman said during her performance of The Bride, she took influence from Clint Eastwood's character Blondie in The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly as inspiration. In her words, Eastwood says almost nothing, but somehow manages to portray a whole character. There was also an early draft included a chapter after the confrontation that the bride has with Vernita Green, played by Vivica A. Fox, in which she would have a gunfight with a character Gogo, Yubari's vengeful sister Yuki. However, that was cut since it would have made film overlong and added $1 million to the budget. There's also another draft in which the bride's car is blown up by Elle Driver, and I guess we'll go into cast. We have Uma Thurman as the bride. Oh wait, as the bride, we have Lucy Liu as O-Ren Ishii. Another person for that role, I believe, was Michelle Yeoh, because Michelle Yeoh met with Tarantino for a role in the movie, and I assume it probably would have been that. We also, who is off screen in this movie, David Carradine as Bill. And David Carradine, for those who don't know, he's known for being in the martial arts TV series Kung Fu. He's also in quite a few westerns, and he himself was a martial artist and is also part of the Carradine family of actors. His dad was John Carradine, and he also has other brothers that became actors, such as Keith Carradine and Robert Carradine. With that being said, we also have Vivica A. Fox as Vernita Green, Michael Madsen as Bud, who's only in this for a second. We have Daryl Hannah as Elle Driver. Her character is based off of Madeline in the movie They Call Her One Eye, and she ended up getting this role due to her portrayal in a TV a made-for-TV movie where she plays, I think, an assassin. What's really interesting is that, well, before I get into that, I guess I got to finish casting here. We have Sonny Chiba as Hattori Hanzo, a swordsmith. Sonny Chiba is a well-known martial artist. He's also known for his role before retiring in Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift. And unfortunately, he passed away in 2021 due to complications of COVID-19, specifically the Delta variant. Crap, I'm gonna butcher this fucking name.
Oh, I'm excited.
Hold on, I gotta Chaike Kuriyama as Gogo Yubari, who's Oren's bodyguard. She's known for roles in the film adaptation of Battle Royale, Battle Royale, which you can thank that for all the Battle Royale games. And she also had starring roles in the Japanese horror film Shikoku, and also Ju-on, which ended up being remade into The Grudge. We also have Gordon Liu as Johnny Mo, who ends up playing another character in the sequel. Now I'm doing it on fucking purpose.
3.
We also have Michael Parks as Ranger Earl McGraw, which is just a brief sequence in this, although the Earl McGraw character originated in Robert Rodriguez's From Dusk Till Dawn, which Tarantino acted in and wrote, and he would also reprise the role in segments and collaborate in the Rodriguez-Tarantino collaboration Grindhouse. and ends up playing another character in Volume 2. Oddly enough, this movie also has like different like bit parts for people that are actually like somewhat well known, such as Sakichi Sato, who is known for being in the adaptations of manga series such as Tokyo Zombie, Ichi the Killer, and Gozu. He plays this character that's dubbed Charlie Brown because he wears a kimono that is similar to Charlie Brown, and he's bald. We also have Jonathan Lawgren as a trucker client who is, attempting to rape the bride while she is in a coma. Jonathan Lawgren is known for being in various Adam Sandler films, such as The Waterboy, Little Nicky. He's one of those people, if you see him, you definitely know who he is. He's like one of the two heavy metal guys in Little Nicky. And also the weird dude that has like his eyes cross-eyed and shit like that in The Waterboy. And we also have Michael Bowen as Buck, who's best known for playing Nicolas Cage's romantic rival in Tommy in the movie Valley Girl. So, like, pretty damn weird that, you have, like, all these people with, like, a decent, amount of, like, movie cred, and then they just have, like, really small parts. Also, we have Julie Dreyfus as Sophie Fatale, Oren's lawyer, and a former protege of Bill. Now, for the role of Bill, Tarantino originally wrote it for Warren Beatty, but as the character developed and required greater screen time and martial arts training, he rewrote it for David Carradine, and Beatty also said he turned down the role due to not wanting to be away from his family while shooting in China. Also, Tarantino considered Bruce Willis for the role of Bill.
The fuck?
Also, due to Daryl Hannah's casting of Elle Driver, due to the physical similarities of Thurman and Hannah, it inspired how he wrote the rivalry between the two characters. And the one other thing I have to say, mention, Tarantino didn't completely direct this. The anime sequence was directed by Kazuto Nakazawa and produced by Production IG, who had produced films including Ghost in the Shell and Blood the Last Vampire. Also, apparently, shooting was ready to begin, but Uma Thurman got pregnant, so production was delayed, with Tarantino saying if Joseph von Stromberg is getting ready to make Morocco and Marlene Dietrich gets pregnant, he waits for Dietrich.
Okay.
Oh, and apparently, despite the scenes being presented out of chronological order, it was shot in chronological order.
That feels bizarre, but all right.
Oh, and the choreographer, Yoon Woo Ping, had previous credits, including The Matrix.
That checks out, honestly.
And Tarantino also said the most difficult part of making the film was since he was used to making movies that were dialogue heavy, with this being and something that's very action heavy. He said that was the biggest challenge that happened, and when the bride battles dozens of Yakuza soldiers, it took 8 weeks to film and over
Jesus.
8 weeks to film, 6 weeks and 6 weeks over schedule.
Jesus Christ.
And that being said, also during filming, Uma Thurman was injured in a car crash, and Tarantino according to Thurman, Miramax would only give her the crash footage if she signed a document releasing them of any consequences of future pain and suffering, which Tarantino was extremely apologetic, although him and Thurman's relationship afterwards became bitter for years. However, I think they have since made up, and also Thurman went up to Tarantino about Harvey Weinstein, who, was accused of sexual abuse by the actor. However, according to Tarantino, how it was brought up to him, he didn't know the full extent as far as, I guess, the way that he was explaining that he was picturing it to be like sexual harassment, but regardless, told Harvey Weinstein to stay the fuck away from Uma Thurman for the rest of shooting.
It does add a little redemption to the otherwise known racist Quentin Tarantino.
And he also stated that he is really feels very sad for looking up to Harvey Weinstein due to the fact that he, helped him with his career. However, with everything that, that went on, he basically considers it to be a way of having like some sort of fucked up father figure.
That's pretty gross, but okay. Less redeeming.
Oh no, he basically flat out says that Harvey Weinstein's a piece of shit and wants nothing to do with him.
Yeah, Harvey Weinstein's a piece of shit, but I still look at him like a father for helping me come up and get the fuck out.
Yeah.
Known racist Quentin Tarantino. Praise towards Harvey Weinstein. Okay. Anyway, let's get into plot. So, if I'm really going to boil it down, this movie is 2 hours of prequel. Essentially, the
2 hours of prologue.
Yeah, the bride, who goes unnamed through this movie except for the parts that they bleep out because, God forbid, you know who the fuck she is.
Which they save for the sequel for whatever reason.
Yeah, that's for...
Oh, I found out what it was. It was Tarantino trying to be artistic.
We're going to get there too, don't you worry. Essentially, you get the grasp that she was pregnant and murdered by this hit squad. She's hunting down the hit squad. They use Vivica A. Fox as like the prequel to the prequel, and then most of the movie is her chasing down Lucy Liu as the second member of the hit squad. Simple enough. That's the film. All right. Do you want to start with likes or dislikes? I know for me, my dislikes is longer. I don't want that to predicate how I feel about the film, but you tell me where you want to start.
Don't know. I think dislikes might be a good thing, so that way we can at least end on a positive note.
That's fair. So my biggest negative, much like Stallman mentioned, this is a cheesy art school film.
Yeah, there's quite a bit in this that's very, very art school. I also forgot to mention, which adds to kind of like, not so much the art school thing, but like the egregious homages, which I say they're egregious because like there's so many of them that it's kind of ridiculous that they're thrown in there. But the music's done by the RZA.
I'll get there too. The it being an art school film, right? There's title slides and sequences that just like I feel the need to illustrate when we've moved to a new thought, right? There's camera shots, there's music, there's it. Not to say that this is like something like a 20-minute short film that you would see at fucking Sundance, but it really isn't that far away. Like this is, it's done to please the art nerds, not people who want to watch an entertaining film. And it's very, very evident. It's really hard to get past, to be honest.
Yeah, like, unless you're, like, familiar with the cinema that it's paying homage to, there's not a lot to get out of this.
It's not to say that it's an unwatchable movie, right? It's not to say that there's...
Right. We're not saying that this is unwatchable or that it's even, like, not an enjoyable film to watch, but like
there's
a lot of annoying things that happen in that kind of.
I forget what TV show it was. It was some kids show, and for whatever reason, my brain is going to Rugrats, even though I don't think that's it. But they go to some film festival, and the whole thing is just like a bunch of people sneezing and saying Gesundheit afterwards. It takes like 3 minutes, and then it just says end, and then the movie's over. 3/4 of this movie is exactly the same film quality as that fucking Rugrats skit. You know? Like, there are still good parts to this movie. We'll get there in likes. I'm not trying to cross a bridge too early, but like, there are so many things in this movie that just feels like he's trying to appease the art nerds and not an audience. And it's kind of shitty. And then much like you said, where there's like to my next point, much like you said, where there's like a whole bunch of homages and stuff all over the place. This film is stupid campy, right? Like,
that's like a mid thing, because there's parts where like I love the campiness of it, but at the same time, the campiness does get a little egregious.
The campiness makes it where you take it less seriously, right?
Right. Which I'm not even sure if this movie is even supposed to be taking like that serious, but knowing Tarantino being Tarantino, he probably considers this high art.
I think that like, if you stop taking it seriously, you can kind of like laugh and enjoy the movie, right? So I think I think it does the movie a service, like in a positive factor. But I think the level of campiness, right, just kind of like
undermines a lot of things, especially when it's like a revenge movie.
And you have to be looking at it from a certain frame to enjoy it, right? If you're looking for a genuine martial arts movie, you're going to be pissed off. If you're looking for a drama or a revenge story of that like serious kind of nature, you're going to be pissed off. You just kind of have to be going in for like
and also kind of like a Ronin samurai film, you're kind of going to be slightly pissed off because you only really get that at the end.
You have to be going in for like, man, I hate to. You have to be going in for an art school experience expecting to see an action movie, right? Kind of thing, where like the art is better than the comedic nonsense that makes this an action movie, and that's the framework in which you have to enjoy it. Like I think the campiness gets a lot in the way of what the movie was actually trying to do, and not that the movie doesn't feel like a Tarantino movie, but that necessary, like, you have to be looking from this one specific angle to enjoy it, feels very not Tarantino.
Yeah, especially since, like, I think the biggest issue with this movie is that they throw so much into it, and it does certain things very well, like, individually, but when you put it all into one film, it just doesn't mesh, well. Especially since, like, within the anime sequence, you get two versions of, like, anime. You get, like, this comic book graphic novel style thing, and then you get into, like, a normal, like, 2000s anime within, like, the last, 2 minutes of the anime sequence. And even in with like the storytelling and stuff, like a lot of the stuff from like this movie, this could have been one movie and had a lot of stuff cut out.
I'm coming to that one too. That's my dislikes finisher.
But before we get to that, my biggest issue with this movie is that there's a lot of stuff that's beautifully shot. Camera angles are great, but it's very inconsistent because there's a lot of camera angles that suck. And there's also a lot of like fight sequences that are really, really good, but then it falls into the trope of the stereotypical of like things are moving too fast. There's too many cuts where you can't really follow things. On the
same level, the like for the cinematography aspect of it, I'm kind of with Stallman that the for the most part the choreography and the events are pretty good, but for the way that the movie is shot, saturation is turned up to 45 on a scale of 10. Like, it's not like it's close enough you can ignore. Like, there is genuine color blur on your screen anytime anything that's not gray appears throughout most of this movie. It's
I forgot about it. There's a part of this movie that just turns into black and white for whatever reason.
It's gross. Like, the way that they use color is absolutely a crime against humanity.
There's really only like 2 sequences where it works, and the rest of the movie it just kind of doesn't.
Even on the intro, as it fades from gray into the color of the truck, which is supposed to be neon obnoxious, it's still oversaturated.
I wasn't even talking about that. I was talking about like well, we'll get to that when we get into likes on that part, but I wasn't talking about that. But yeah, that's pretty.
Yeah. I also noticed a plot hole. So to break a little deeper into the plot, right? Essentially, this woman spends 4 years in a coma after a failed murder attempt on her, or failed assassination attempt, and then she goes to hunt these people down. In that 4-year gap, she's in a coma. Right? They fail to kill her in a coma, which is a respect, honor, whatever the fuck, right? But she wakes up from the coma and says out loud that the easiest target would be the Yakuza boss, who was not the Yakuza boss 4 years ago. She just wakes up from a coma and knows the crime lord status of people in Japan. Fuck right off.
Well, she said the first person on her list was the easiest to find because she was a crime lord.
Again, wasn't a crime lord when she went into the coma.
But when you're like let's just say like if she's like the John. Right. I'm playing devil's advocate, by the way. Like, okay. But let's say like if you're running around like Tokyo, like you're like John Gotti of Tokyo.
That's great. That's great. Tokyo was not the first city she fucking went to. Stallman, You've been conscious for the past 4 years. Who's the fucking leader of the Japanese fucking mafia right now?
No, I have no clue.
Exactly, Stallman. She was in a 4-year fucking coma, wakes up and books a flight to Osaka. Fuck right off. She knows everything despite 4 years of unconsciousness. Fuck off.
I guess I assume like she went to Okinawa to get the sword and then figured, and probably heard shit and probably was like snooping around and figuring
she
stuff
went
out,
to Osaka to get the sword instead of just like buying a gun. She was in the United States. It's literally the easiest weapon on earth to obtain. Again, plot holes. Whatever the case may be, it's a shitty overlook about the idea that Tarantino wanted to film something in Japan and use Japanese culture so that he could use Lucy Liu to be a pretty thing to look at and have somebody else's fucking feet on set. Okay? No. Plot hole. Shitty overlook from Tarantino. I'm just gonna throw that out there.
Wish I could fucking play devil's advocate as well as you, dude.
I'm really good at it, but also everything sucks. So, the other part of this, one of my big takeaways is I think it's especially notable towards the beginning of the movie rather than the end, but I think it's pretty notable the whole way throughout. One of Tarantino's strengths in the past 3 movies we've watched, and if you look at his career as a whole, is dialogue. Like, he really creates an environment where you feel like 2 people are talking, not 2 actors.
Right.
And in this one, dialogue is sloppy and disjointed and feels way over-scripted. People saying things they wouldn't normally say, using mannerisms they absolutely shouldn't. And I start to wonder if that's not like an anime trope kind of thing where people buy in too far in a way that doesn't need to be believable. But it just feels super strange to write into a live action movie that isn't animated that you need to try that hard to be that strange.
Yeah.
It just kind of like I think it's especially notable in the scene. Like I wrote this note in the scene in the intro with the bride and Vivica A. Fox. where like that's when I wrote it down. Like it felt awkward and strange and like not good dialogue. I underlined it 4 times after that because it was like I needed to triple down on this. This is fucking awful. It doesn't feel human. It feels like even beyond like when you watch anime,
especially when you have 2 good actors like Uma Thurman and Vivica A. Fox.
Yeah, when you watch an anime that tries to make fun of anime and it just doubles down on the things that anime does poorly, right? The dialogue in this felt exactly the same, where they were trying too hard to make a joke that wasn't fucking landing.
Yeah.
It was rough. Really fucking rough.
And again with like homages, one that I mean a lot of them are very distracting, and on top of that, like I wouldn't say some of them were just homages. Some of them, like this movie's been kind of memed to death with like sort of cliches, and I'm not sure if like this started some of the cliches or if these cliches were around before and Tarantino just threw them in there. A big example is like when you see the Yakuza walking down like this hallway and you hear the bah, 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 which is a fucking awesome sequence, awesome song, but like that's been done to death so many times that it's just kind of lost its coolness, you know? And on top of other things, the one scene where and I know that most people wouldn't pick this up unless you are a huge horror movie fan. The scene where she remembers something in the coma with like the one like rapist orderly, the dude's name's like Bucks and shit. He's like, you know, my name's Bucks and I'm here to fuck. That's actually a line from a Tobe Hooper film called Eaten Alive, which is about like this guy that owns a hotel and kills the people staying at the hotel and feeds them to crocodiles. One of the characters is like this horny hillbilly that's called Buck, and he's like going up to a prostitute. He's like, my name's Buck and I'm here to fuck. And that character's played by Robert Englund, who is Freddy Krueger.
We've taken a train.
Yeah. But you get what I'm saying. Like there's stuff like that that's just thrown in here from like different movies where it's just like it's ridiculously meta and it annoys the hell out of me.
It's also it's hard in 2024 to take that context seriously too, because like you said, you're not sure what's, you know, what he stole and what was within this movie, right? I mean, you just listen to the soundtrack of this movie, right? I for what it's worth, I think the soundtrack is really good. They utilize the
soundtrack's amazing, but it's also
phenomenally
hella cliche.
But 90% of the things that they use in this movie as original sound are now things you hear into the background of your memes on fucking Instagram and TikTok, right?
Or in commercials.
Yeah. You guys know the fucking Vonage ad that used to run years ago?
Yeah, the 5, 6, 7, 8s are in this, and they do that song.
Yeah, no, it's genuinely 3 minutes of this movie is a Vonage ad, and Vonage didn't exist in 2003. I mean,
they probably did. They just didn't use that.
Either fucking way, it doesn't goddamn matter. My point is that like, even with the homages and the tropes and the things that had come from some other media, right? Like, even if it didn't come from other media, it's been used since, and it's super hard to separate what's old and Tarantino is paying homage to versus what Tarantino did that has since been used in other things that feels like it discredits Tarantino. Like, this movie kind of feels like a wash as far as his influence goes. It just right. everything feels like it belongs to something else, even if it was his original thing.
Right. Anything else?
I think that's okay. Another dislike, I guess. I'm gonna be the one that makes you take a shot, and I promise it's my only one. I'll fucking segment here. This movie does a very good job at setting a backstory. The problem is that the whole fucking thing is backstory.
Yeah. whether it's backstory between Lucy Liu, backstory of Uma Thurman.
All of that aside, right? Like, all of those could be complaints, okay? My biggest gripe is the idea that the very beginning of the movie gives you the title sequence, and then it says Volume 1. So you know that there is the intention for Volume 2, even when Volume 2 doesn't exist as we are watching it in 2024, right? You watch this movie for 2 hours, okay? Very early on, they tell you that she's trying to get revenge on the 4 people that were part of her assassin squad and the leader of said assassin squad. So there's a 5-person hit list. Vivica A. Fox dies in 6 fucking minutes. The title sequence ends. It takes 6 minutes to give her backstory, her explanation, her defense against her life, and her death. And then we take an hour and 44 minutes to kill Lucy Liu because she needs a backstory and an anime sequence and another shitty story, and then her bodyguard needs a sequence and her lawyer needs a sequence, and then you need to watch some weird dude pet her hair, and then you need to see an entire 8-minute scene about feet, and then you need to see her fight 894 fucking dudes that are called the 88 because God forbid there be enough action. And then she eventually kills Lucy Liu, and then you realize the whole goddamn thing is meaningless because the entire purpose of this expedition was to kill the guy in charge. She hasn't gotten halfway through the fucking kill squad yet. We could have made Lucy Liu's entire sequence another 6-minute sequence. This could have been 12 minutes as a prequel to Kill Bill 2. Minutes. Right. This could have been 12 minutes that led into Kill Bill 2. You'd get the backstory, you would see her kill 2 of the Death Squad, and then you'd get a quality movie. But instead, you get an entire hour and 40 fucking minutes of absolute worthlessness for you to miss the entire fucking plot because we wanted to feature Lucy Liu and Uma Thurman's fucking feet. I hate it. I hate that this movie exists in this fashion. I'm not here to say that it's bad or that it's unwatchable or that there's no enjoyment. I'm saying that the idea that this became 2 movies and there was nothing worth cutting means that a boardroom full of fucking producers should have been fucking euthanized in public. Okay. Sorry, I'm through it now. I'm done. Okay, go ahead.
Was that the big whole fucking thing that you were going to say that we get into?
I don't know.
That's what you wanted to end it on?
What did I say? Because I'm only reading my notes and I'm trying to ignore all the things that made me mad.
I forget.
All right. Sounds like yes. I feel like I covered it. If I don't remember and you don't remember. Nailed it.
Yeah. Now we're actually going to get into positives. And let's just say what this movie does very well, it does very fucking well. Like the camera shots that are good are really, really good, especially like the sequence where the bride is hiding in the bathroom to attack Sophie. Like the shot between, just like the whole like sequence, and it's like done in a single shot, and it's awesome, especially like where it really like shows like well, I wouldn't say it's one shot, but they definitely like show like the bathroom stall and it fades the bathroom stall out where you see Uma Thurman hiding in there.
I will say that the cinematography in this is very good outside of the camera itself, right? Angles are good, sound is good, balancing is good. Like I mentioned earlier that the saturation sucks, right? But they do a very good job at capturing action. They do a very good job at making you feel like you're a part of the action. Even with like we've complained on this podcast before about jump cuts and like missing on action, right? Even when they use jump cuts, it feels like you're not missing anything and you're very aware of what's going on, right? I think that the soundtrack nails it and is a perfect accoutrement to the video that you see, right? Sometimes balancing is a little bit weird with music and the rest of the film, but honestly, I blame 2003 more than I blame the filming itself, right? Like, all of the cinematography outside of what you can visually see on camera is actually incredibly good.
Full on agree. I also like the fact that the characters that they do like give backstories on are actually rather interesting. Like it's unnecessary. It's completely unnecessary, but at least the characters are interesting enough where it's not unwatchable, like like the whole setup for Go-Go, Johnny Mo, and also Lucy Liu's character. Like, they are very, very interested in. Lucy Liu fucking kills it. Like,
Yeah.
especially like the fact that her backstory definitely makes her a threat. And I think it's really interesting that her backstory is based on revenge, and that's how she ends up becoming like to the top of the Yakuza, while Uma Thurman's whole story arc is based on revenge as well. So you have two people's paths crossing that have their lives built upon revenge. And then they finally face off at the end. I also like how a lot of things, especially like Lucy Liu's and Uma Thurman's dynamic, is basically kind of told by pure body language, because you kind of have a sense of like, there's a lot of things where, I guess to go back to like the diamond heist of Reservoir Dogs, where you're trying to piece together what exactly is like happened. Well, in this movie, since we don't really get like a lot of backstory, this is just all fucking prologue and doesn't really give a lot of details until the sequel. But I do find it interesting that it's kind of like implied the reason why O-Ren is number one, not because like she would be the easiest to find, but like just like the dialogue and like actions between Lucy Liu and Uma Thurman is that the reason why she's number one on the list was that they actually had like a friend, like a close friendship while both being assassins. And the betrayal is why she's number one on the list. Because like in the sequence with like Vivica A. Fox, like Uma Thurman's just like dead set on like, fuck you, I'm killing you. While like in the sequence while she's like fighting Lucy Liu, you see like a sense of like, like this is what I have to do, but I feel terrible about it,
I see why you say so. There's no disagreements from me. I think it's just a stretch to extrapolate when it's not at all important. Right?
Right.
Like, it's not that I have anything to disagree with what you have to say. I guess it's just that the idea that, like, this movie is 2 hours of prologue means, like, it's not worth reading into that for me to find value in it.
Right. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that this movie is kind of like a live action anime. Like,
except for the part that's actual anime.
Actually anime, yeah. But like, and I have to say, like, I've seen a lot of shitty like live action animes, like live action adaptations of animes. And to me, like, this being kind of like a live action anime does it better than any of the other things, because I don't think like this is like a pile of shit, this does it very, very well, and I wish like movies that are live action adaptations of an anime were done this well.
I will give it credit, right? So as we were watching this movie, I complained about the fact that like you could hear the sound effects of the weapons and the whoosh 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 that made it just a Star Wars film with less sci-fi, right? I'm gonna walk that back a little bit, because I feel like as you watch this movie, the homage goes to anime rather than to like a martial arts film.
Right.
It gives you the idea of a martial arts film because it is live action, right? But if you compare it to an anime, I don't think the over-exaggerated sound effects, I don't think the very clearly harnessed stunts, right? I don't think the cheesiness of the fights necessarily detracts from it because it's not a kung fu film. This isn't Bruce Lee or Jackie Chan like actually using real martial arts techniques. This is,
speaking of which, this is also another homage to fucking like since you mentioned Bruce Lee, the bride's like get up is actually from Bruce Lee's get up in Gang of Death.
Yeah. That's been a joke since long before I saw this film about you're from fucking Kill Bill. Well, Kill Bill's for the fuck off. But I think that if you're comparing this to a live action anime, right?
Yeah.
I think it makes the anime scene itself, the part that is actually illustrated and not live action, I think it makes that. I wanted to call him a racist so bad, and I've been trying to find a reason to call Tarantino a racist. And I
This
think
is kind of like the only one. This is kind of like the one movie where you're just like, you're not entirely sure or not, you know?
I think the more that I think about it, like the idea that they made a live action anime and then they still managed to include the anime in their own original animation rather than something that looked like a very clear ripoff of something else, I'm going to say that it genuinely feels like it's honoring anime and not a racist ripoff where the white man's the hero. Like, I hate to give Tarantino the credit for racial sensitivity, but like, as close as I can give it to him as being a white man, where my opinion doesn't really count, I think he kind of hits the nail on the head. And I hate that I said that out loud after watching him cast himself into Pulp Fiction with the excuse of saying the N-word out loud on film. I hate that came out of my mouth. I really do. But I know. It genuinely feels like he's honoring the culture rather than taking a white adaptation to something cultural. Which I guess is a positive.
Yeah. But I think we should go down to like what really, really makes this movie like really good. The fucking choreography, especially the fight scene. Like at the end, you like the whole fucking battle, the samurai fucking sword battle is amazing. For the most part.
The choreography is very good. The things that they do, I hate that it's most notable in the first 6 minutes of the film, right? But the idea, the speed and precision at which the scene with Vivica A. Fox happens, right? I think that's when the choreography is most notably good.
Oh, yeah, because you could follow it completely.
I think the choreography... I think it's true of every fight movie that's ever happened where it's 1 versus 1,000,000, where the 1,000,000 just get to be lazy and the person in charge gets to dictate where you're supposed to swing to make sure they look really cool, right? I am surprised, as you say, that took 8 fucking weeks to film, which makes it feel like they did put a lot of thought and effort and intentionality into it, right? But like, I believe that those are less impressive visually than the opening scenes, but the choreography is fantastic. The way in which weapons work, right? Like, as much shit as I personally have given on this podcast to numerous directors now about count fucking bullets, you dumbass, right? Like, samurai swords often are not considered for how they are to physically wield, right? So take, for example, you're holding something in your hands. Like if I'm holding my hands like this, the sword goes up, right? My wrists go this far. There is no good way to stab forward with force, right? Because your wrists don't fucking work like that, right? And I think even in considering the way that a samurai sword works, the choreography was good in considering what was or was not realistic for the weapons being wielded by the characters.
And even if it was unrealistic, it at least gave you... It was realistic enough where you could suspend your disbelief.
Yes. Like, everything was done with intentional thought in mind, and whether that's choreography or the martial arts director or whoever had their involvement in any facet of this, right? I think all of them did a very good job paying attention to the detail of what it takes to actually make what looks like it happens in the movies actual. That being said, there are parts where, like, she regains her balance leaning sideways perpendicular to the fucking floor, regaining gravity while running up a fucking balcony, okay? Like, I'm not here to say that everything in this movie is perfectly feasible, but I am saying that, like, the parts that take careful coordination were given extra care, and it was notably good.
And props to all the actors doing this, especially, like, Uma Thurman, like Ted made the comment, like, her, like, after filming this, like, her wrists must have been like in pain.
She probably needed surgery on both of them between the two halves of this film, which is why it's two halves. Like, I'm going to be honest. But still, while her wrists may be in pain, there was nothing that was outside the realm of possibility and absolute feasibility for somebody trained in sword fighting, right? Uma Thurman had to put in, I guaranteed, numerous tens of thousands of hours of work to make sure that she looked realistic and honorable to what art form she was portraying. Like, I give her more credit than just about anybody else in this film, but all of the acting, all of the performances were good enough in the idea that, like, there was nothing that was beyond the shadow of a doubt that this was acting and fake. Outside of the dialogue, everybody absolutely nailed their roles.
Yeah, especially David Carradine, even though, like, he's like and that's the crazy thing. Like, I'm used to seeing I know David Carradine's a hell of a good actor. Like, he's noted for being a really good actor. However, like, just seeing him, like, basically for the most part off camera, I never realized, like, how, like, good of a voice actor he is, you know? Like, his voice is very, very iconic, and you don't realize how iconic his voice really is with that, you know, until you see, like, the scenes that he's in, like, basically off screen, or you just see, like, his hands.
Yeah. Again, like you said, even not being on screen did not take away from the performance of any of these characters. Like, I think everybody who was cast did a solid job in the idea that, like, they met the role, they felt they fulfilled the expectations of the character. Again, dialogue is the only detraction I have. The word choice and the over intentionality of all of them felt strange, but to be honest, like, every actor did a really good job.
Absolutely agree. Do you have any other
I just want to bring up the soundtrack one more time. The soundtrack was loud and in your face. Where I said the last soundtrack did its job, particularly because it stayed out of your way in Jackie Brown. The soundtrack was absolutely in the way, but in a very intentional way, where you were supposed to notice the soundtrack above all else. The soundtrack added suspense where it was supposed to. The soundtrack added, like, a fun or upbeat nature because it was supposed to. When the soundtrack needed to give you a certain vibe to this movie, the soundtrack got in your way to make sure that you felt this thing. And while it's counter to most things I say about most soundtracks in all of this history, the history of this podcast, this one went above and beyond to force that emotion upon you that you felt the things you were supposed to at any given point. And I think it deserves a lot of credit. While a lot of the sounds and songs that are used in this have since become memes that, like, that's funny, it's from TikTok. Like, for how they were used in this movie, they were really fucking good. Really fucking good.
Really, really good. Especially when she's like wheeling down, like, to find the car, God, do I have to say the car's name?
Oh, the pussy wagon? Yeah.
Yeah, the pussy wagon. Like, I love how, like, you have, like, an awesome badass in your face, like, soundtrack thing, and then it stops, and then she looks at the keys, looks at the car, and she's like, are you fucking kidding me? But then the music comes up, and then she, like, brightens up, and it's all right in your face and everything, and it's like the RZA really outdid himself on the soundtrack.
Yeah. Incredibly tremendous job. That's it for my list. That's everything I've got written down for my notes.
Oh crap! There was one other thing I wanted to say that thought. I can't think of it.
Okay.
So,
rankings, and I'm gonna let you go first.
Shit. Oh my god, this is tough. Because, like, if I was just going sheer plot wise, this would be at the bottom, you know? But Oh, I know what I was gonna say. If you're a gore hound, you're gonna enjoy like a lot of the sequences in this because there's a lot of blood.
This was a blood fountain, dude. Way over the top on blood. It wasn't a positive or a negative, but absolutely an observation.
It's a positive.
Holy
for me.
fucking blood, dude. In an unrealistic, absolutely not at all close to realistic fashion.
Although there are realistic stuff into it with like the metal plate in her head, but
this is like, okay, Michael Bay movies, guy throws a matchstick 200 yards away from a gas station, the entire continent explodes. This was, I poked you with a thumbtack, it spewed across the North American continent kind of blood. Okay, like this was the Michael Bay of blood. This was insane amounts of blood spewing. Not like there's a lot of blood. Like this was fountains of blood on purpose.
Yeah, the only other movie I could think that's bloodier than this is Dead Alive that Peter Jackson made, and that was a zombie film.
This was nutty with blood. Anyway,
yeah.
Hit me with your rankings, Stallman. The people are waiting.
Put this between, just because, like, just for sheer enjoyment of this, for how camp it was, and also the fact that it was like a live action anime, I am putting this between Jackie Brown and Pulp Fiction. Mainly because, like, just for, like, the enjoyable sequence, although I do believe Reservoir Dogs and Pulp Fiction objectively are better movies.
I'm kind of surprised to hear you say that, because I felt like you mirrored a lot of the things that I felt about this movie. This one's last for me, and it's not fucking close. This movie was an absolute fucking waste of everybody's time. This movie could have been 12 minutes of lead-in to Pulp Fiction, or to Kill Bill 2. You could have made this one movie and lost nothing of value. This movie sucked in terms of purpose. Okay? It's...
In terms of purpose, Ted actually...
Right. Watchability...
Ted doesn't think it's a terrible movie.
Watchability, enjoyability... value for your time is fine and dandy. The purpose of this movie, when you recognize from literally the title sequence that there's a second one already, years before it is released, you recognize...
It's actually 6 months.
Whatever the fuck. 6 months of wasted fucking time. You recognize that every second you put into watching this movie is better spent on the follow-up, makes every second of this movie an absolute goddamn waste of fucking time. Now, with all that in mind, this is better than like 90% of Kubrick. Okay? I've watched a shitload of worse movies for this podcast, and that's ignoring all of the even shittier movies I have watched on purpose on my own for not content. Okay? It's a good movie. It's not without any value at all. But when you sit back and you recognize, why am I watching this movie? Even when I'm doing this for a podcast and I have to, I still feel like I wasted my fucking time. Stallman made the comment before we started watching any Tarantino movies, are we putting the Kill Bills into one podcast, or are we doing two separate recordings? And I said, they're two movies, they're two recordings. And at least 45 times through this movie, I regretted me saying they're two different movies, two different podcasts, because this is an absolute fucking waste of time. If you intend to watch for content instead of just the enjoyability of I wasted 2 hours, this movie fucking blows. Very good.
I agree with you on that, but like...
Very good. Very watchable. A lot of enjoyment for watching it if you just intend to spend 2 hours watching a movie. I'm not talking anybody out of seeing Kill Bill. I even bullied Sushi into watching it because he wasn't able to join us when we watched on Monday. Okay? Like, I want to be very clear. This movie is not without any reason whatsoever for watching it. But if you really think about the purpose, you wasted 2 hours when you can just watch Kill Bill 2 and see the payoff. It's a fucking waste. So this is by far dead last for me. It will probably stay there until we're done Tarantino. Fuck the fact that we had to make this its own podcast.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I like campy shit, so...
The campiness does not save this from being as worthless as it is. Again, enjoyable, especially if you like campy shit.
That's why I had to say objectively it should be at the bottom, but...
We've done it before. We've done it before. Quality of movie and enjoyment, like they're difficult to separate. I did it with Christopher Nolan. Like I get it, right? Like I'm not here to say that you have to call the best movie your first one, right? Like we rank them our own independent ways for independent reasons. It's okay. But there is nothing that will get me past the fact that this was 2 hours worth of movie for what could have been 8 minutes worth of content to make one solid Kill Bill movie. And I'm so fucking agitated at the fact that we had to spend an entire fucking hour talking about the fact that this was a different fucking film than the one that's worth a damn. Frustrated as hell.
Yeah.
Anyway, you guys lived without a ton of shots. I'm very proud of Stallman for only making this, 4 shots, and one of them was me. Stallman, give yourself a round of applause. You did a really good fucking job. I'm so proud of you.
Can't wait till we do the sequel, because the sequel is awesome. And, the next podcast is going to be Kill Bill Volume 2, which is the payoff, a much better movie.
You can just take a blanket for one shot to blanket all of that. I'll count it. So if anybody's playing the game, it's only 5 shots for the past hour. Your liver still probably hurts. Not the death I was expecting, but as Stallman mentioned, next week we'll be watching Kill Bill Volume 2. As always, you can watch movies with us in the Discord on Monday nights. The link will be attached in the description of this video, so you can come check us out there. If you're interested, we also make other forms of content. You can check out the Discord for a whole bunch of gamers and people who make all kinds of fun content, be it the YouTube or Twitch or whatever. So you can come and check that out and hang out with a bunch of people to play a bunch of games. Otherwise, you can catch Stallman and I on our respective platforms. Stallman at Traductus, myself at Ted Green Eagles. Otherwise, I think that'll wrap us up for this one, and we'll catch the actual meaningful content of this fucking movie next week when we're here for Kill Bill Volume 2. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you here next week. Adios.
See ya.